Alright, this is going to be a kind of a two-part video, or three-part video, I should say. I'm going to just cover a couple things really quick, and then I'm going to go into two paranormal experiences that I had. Uh, so that was by request, actually. I mentioned it real briefly in my last video, but I want to give a shout out to Sarfaraz, who he asked me when I was going to make a video about the weird thing that happened to me with the Monroe Gateway experience tapes. And I decided to make that video right now. I just read the comment, so I'll give a shout out to Sarfaraz. Thank you for watching my channel, and I'd like to thank everybody else that watches and that subscribe. Thank you, God bless you. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is kind of like what this channel is to begin with, because I never really went over that. Like you can read my title. It's Gnostic Reverend, of course, but I'm not a real reverend, although I am an ordained minister in the state of Nevada. If anybody is trying to get married, hit me up. Now, what this channel is a way basically for me to talk about the kind of metaphysical concepts that Christians don't typically discuss, and that you're typically not going to hear discussed among the people that go to your local non-denominational church or Protestant church, especially not a non-denominational church where the pastor gives anecdotes about his life and his wife, and how about those Green Bay Packers, and who doesn't really know his scripture. And in the last video, you can see I said a few things about astral projection, altered states of consciousness, that if you try to talk about that with your pastor, he'll probably not really understand what you're talking about. B, he'll tend to kind of brush it off. I had an experience recently where I told somebody that I felt like I had a lot more insight since becoming a Christian, and I meant it like, I didn't say it in a way where I was aggrandizing any of my experiences, or thinking that I had some kind of special insight or something, although that's the word I used, but he took it the wrong way, basically. And he took it the wrong way, and he accused me of having something that the Orthodox Christians, I've seen them refer to it as pre-lest, and I'll put a link in the video description of a wiki that has a lot of information about Orthodoxy, and specifically what pre-lest means. And basically, what he was trying to say was that I was having religious, almost like delusions of grandeur or something. I also want to say really quick that I am not a communist. In my last video, I was wearing a Chapo Trap House t-shirt, and I guess that was a mistake to wear something so political, because I got a few messages in my inbox accusing me of being like a communist disinformation shill or whatever. But that's just a t-shirt that an acquaintance of mine, it belongs to them. I've listened to Chapo Trap House, but I'm not a listener. I'm not a Chapo Trap House Grey Wolf or whatever, and I'm not a communist. So I just want to mention that. Okay, now getting into what this video was about is I had two paranormal experiences ever in my life. And one of them has to do with the last video, which is the Gateway Experience CD set. So I guess I'll touch on that one first. And then the second one is kind of crazier. But one of the things they teach you in the Gateway tapes is something called a resonant energy balloon. And what that is basically, people believe in the astral body and the subtle body. And, you know, I guess those two terms are interchangeable. But two things that aren't really interchangeable is different traditions talk about astral travel, and some talk about soul travel. And basically what that is your astral body or your soul traveling to different planes of existence, or tuning into extra dimensions and things like that. And a lot of the religions believe in this, actually, like especially Eastern religions like Hinduism and stuff. I recently ordered a few books about Ekankar just out of curiosity, because I remembered the old commercials about Ekankar in the 90s. I don't know if anybody remembered. You used to be able to call an 800 number, and they would try to convert you to Ekankar. And the commercial talked about the ancient science of soul travel. And I always remembered that. And now it recently just hit me like, oh, soul travel. Like, what the hell was soul travel? You know, that sounds pretty crazy as somebody who's into metaphysics. But when you're hearing it on TV and you don't have like a religious background or anything, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But anyway, the Monroe Institute developed a method for altered states of consciousness and astral projection, which I go into in my other video. If you want to look at it, feel free. I cover the whole thing, and that way I don't have to go into it here. But yeah, I did my Monroe Institute guided meditation, and I reached what they call the focus 10 stage of concentration, where your mind is awake and your body is asleep. And I did what's called a resonant energy balloon. Now, the reason I mention all these Eastern traditions where they talk about the astral body or the subtle body or whatever is because they believe that your body has like an energy field to it, you know, and that this energy is perceptible in the higher dimensions, just not in the physical one, which is why we can't see it. And they get you to do this resonant energy balloon that it is basically a toroidal field of energy that surrounds you that's like positive energy. And I did this rebow, they call it, resonant energy balloon. And then I was awoken out of the meditation by my roommate coming home. And then I promptly uh, proceeded to engage into like a verbal quarrel with my roommate, and it got pretty heated actually, and we got really mad at each other, and I was really mad afterwards, but I was in this focus 10 state of concentration, and if you believe that that was doing what it was supposed to be doing, my energy field was more intense, you know. So I was convinced that it was real after this experience, because basically I was led to believe that my resonant energy balloon was up based on something that happened in the physical world. If you have a gas oven, if you have a gas oven in your house, in your kitchen, you'll know that you turn on the gas and then you press the burner for it to light the gas. And it's an electronic burner. Now, I walked by the oven in our kitchen, and every time I would walk by it, the burners would attempt to ignite, but the gas was off, you know, so it didn't turn on. I would walk by the oven and the burners, all five of them at the same time, they were going like clap, 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 you know, like trying to light. And that had never happened to the oven before. I uh, I walked by it a few times. Every time I walked by it, that's what it did. I summoned my roommate, my other roommate that wasn't arguing with, and he wasn't able to see anything wrong with it. But he observed that when I walked by the unit, it would attempt to light the burners. I thought that was pretty strange, and it had never happened before, and I was never able to reproduce it. And I moved out of that house really soon after, and I was never able to reproduce it. So that was the weird thing that happened to me with my resonant energy balloon that made me start to believe that it was real, and not just something I was seeing in my imagination or whatever. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about, just so that this video isn't super short, is if you want to hear about another paranormal experience I had, feel free to keep listening. And if not, you know, this might not interest you. It doesn't have anything to do with Christianity or metaphysics or anything like that. It's just something weird that happened to me. I was in my apartment one night, and it was pretty late at night, maybe past midnight, maybe between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. And my whole apartment building, I lived on the third floor, it started to tremble. and I was the only one home, and nobody else was able to verify that this was happening, unfortunately. So you'll have to just take my word for it. But the whole apartment began to shake and vibrate, and I heard like a humming sound that sounded like it was directly above the roof. I was on the third floor, which was the top floor, and this noise was so loud, and I had never heard anything like it before. It was not. I don't believe it was an air conditioner malfunctioning or anything. It sounded as if something was hovering above the house and it was causing the whole apartment to tremble. And when I went outside, I didn't see anything above my apartment building. And this noise lasted maybe like 3 or 4 hours until 4 o'clock in the morning or so. And I was by myself when it was happening. And maybe I just excited myself into a state of mania or something, but I had some kind of intuition that something was really wrong. And I was actually, I have to admit, I was really frightened, and I'm a grown man, and I kind of got tripped out, and I called my mom, who lives in the next town over, and of course she wasn't able to do anything. I was just like, "Hey, mom, I'm scared," you know, and what that isn't so weird in and of itself. Because if that was all that happened, I might have just written it off as an air conditioner on the roof that was messed up and it was about to fail or whatever. But the next morning, uh, I noticed a flying wing shaped aircraft. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of, like the B 2 Spirit bomber that the United States Air Force uses to fly around as like a nuclear deterrent or whatever. Uh, Something kind of like that. It was flying super low to the ground in the around my neighborhood, and it was performing like acrobatic maneuvers. And there is an Air Force base right by where I was living at the time, and it's there's a lot of test flights that happen there, and attached to that Air Force base is a range, a bombing range, and it's known. I'm not going to dox myself and say where I live, but it's known for a lot of like UFO sightings, basically sightings of unidentified flying objects and experimental aircraft and things like that. But I thought it was rather strange that the very next morning, 3 hours after I was hearing the noise, 7 o'clock in the morning, this aircraft was doing these acrobatic maneuvers in the airspace where any craft would have been if there was some kind of craft that I was hearing the night before. Which I'm not saying that, I just think it's something weird that happened to me. And paired with the aircraft flying around in the morning, I thought that that was pretty strange. But, make of it what you will. If you have any thoughts about it, or if anything weird like that's ever happened to you, or if you have any experience with the resonant energy balloon, or if you have anything that maybe you want me to talk about after hearing my channel manifesto and watching my first and second videos, hopefully, let me know in the comments, and I'll make a video of it. Like I said, this gentleman asked me to make a video about the weird thing that happened to me with the resonant energy balloon, and I'm making it right now. So, uh, I'll take a look at it. But thank you guys for watching, and God bless.